I still remember the exact moment I realized I'd been trading for 3 years and had learned absolutely nothing. It was 4:20 a.m. I was sitting in my underwear, staring at my third blown account in 18 months. The room was dark except for the glow of my trading screen. My girlfriend had left me 2 months earlier. She'd said I was obsessed and impossible to reach. She wasn't wrong. But here's what shook me to my core that night. I wasn't crying about the money. I was already planning my next deposit, already thinking about how I'd do it differently this time. Already convinced that the next trade, the next strategy, the next indicator would be the one that changed everything. That's when it hit me. I wasn't a trader. I was an addict. And if you've ever felt that same pull, that same desperate need to prove you can beat the market, then what I'm about to share with you today might be the most important thing you hear this year. Because the path from that broken version of me to consistent profitability wasn't about finding the perfect strategy. It was about confronting the one thing most traders never want to face themselves: the painful truth. Let me tell you something that the trading gurus won't. Most of us start trading for the wrong reasons. We see the Instagram posts, the Lambos, the laptops on beaches. We read about some 22-year-old who turned $500 into $50,000 in 3 months. And we think, that could be me. But here's what they don't show you. That same 22-year-old usually blows that $50,000 within 6 weeks. They don't post about that part. They don't show you the sleepless nights, the relationship damage, or the slow erosion of their mental health. In my early days, I thought I was different. I had a finance degree. I'd read every book. I'd watched hundreds of hours of YouTube videos. I knew about support and resistance, Fibonacci retracements, and RSI divergence. I could speak the language, but knowledge and wisdom are not the same thing. My first year of trading was a masterclass in self-destruction. I'd hit a winning streak and feel invincible. I'd increase my position size. I'd tell my friends I was onto something. Then I'd hit a losing streak and spiral into depression. I'd revenge trade, I'd chase losses, I'd break every rule I'd set for myself. The cycle was predictable, but I couldn't see it. I was too close to the problem. Here's what I know now that I wish I'd understood then. The market doesn't care about your dreams, your bills, or your desperate need to prove yourself. The market simply moves, and your job isn't to predict it, control it, or outsmart it. Your job is to respond to it with discipline, patience, and emotional control. But before you can do that, you need to understand something fundamental about how our brains work when money is on the line. The science of trading psychology. Let me share something with you that changed my entire perspective. Your brain wasn't designed for trading. Seriously, evolution optimized our ancestors for immediate threats and rewards. See a lion? Run now. Find food? Eat now. That immediate response system kept us alive for thousands of years. But trading requires the exact opposite. Trading demands that you act slowly, think probabilistically, and resist immediate emotional impulses. You need to take losses without panic. Hold winners through uncomfortable pullbacks. Wait patiently when every fiber of your being wants to act. This is why trading feels so unnatural. You're asking your ancient survival brain to do something it was never built for. When you're in a losing trade, your amygdala lights up like a Christmas tree. This is the part of your brain that processes fear and threat. To your brain, losing money feels similar to physical danger. Your heart rate increases, cortisol floods your system. Your thinking becomes narrow and panicked. I experienced this viscerally during my second year of trading. I'd entered a position on EUR/USD based on a clean setup. My risk was defined. My plan was clear. But then the trade moved against me. Just 40 pips. And I froze. I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe properly. I just stared at the red number getting bigger. My rational brain knew I should close the trade according to my plan. But my emotional brain kept screaming, "It'll come back. Just wait. Don't take the loss." I held that trade for 3 days. It eventually hit my stop loss, but not before causing me enormous psychological damage. The dollar amount wasn't even significant, but the emotional toll, that lasted weeks. This is what most traders don't talk about: the invisible cost of poor emotional management. It's not just about the money you lose on bad trades, it's about the mental capital you burn through with every emotional decision. And here's the thing, you can't logic your way out of this. You can't just decide to be disciplined. You need to understand your emotional triggers, recognize them in real time, and build systems that protect you from yourself. The turning point. So back to that night at 2:47 a.m., staring at my third blown account. I made a decision, but it wasn't the decision you might think. I didn't decide to study harder. I didn't decide to find a better strategy. I didn't even decide to keep trading. I decided to stop completely for 3 months, and I decided to use those 3 months to study the only chart that really mattered, the chart of my own behavior. I started keeping a different kind of journal. Not just my trades, but my thoughts, my emotions, my triggers. I wrote down every time I felt the urge to trade. I documented what I was feeling before I opened my platform. I tracked my emotional state and how it correlated with my trading decisions. What I discovered shocked me. I realized I only took impulsive trades when I was bored, every single time. When I had nothing else occupying my mind, I'd open my charts and find reasons to trade. I'd convince myself I saw a setup, but really I was just seeking stimulation. I discovered that I became overconfident after 2 consecutive wins. Not 3, not 4, 2. After my second winner, my risk management would deteriorate. I'd increase my lot size. I'd move my stop loss further away to give the trade room to breathe. I'd break my own rules because I felt invincible. I noticed that I revenge traded specifically after taking stop losses on trades that later moved in my original direction. That psychological pain, being right but getting stopped out, would send me into a spiral of desperate trading to prove I was right all along. These patterns were invisible to me when I was caught up in the daily grind of trading. But when I stepped back and just observed myself, they became crystal clear. This is what I call trading psychology archaeology. You dig through the layers of your own behavior until you find the real drivers of your decisions. Rebuilding from scratch. After those 3 months, I came back to trading, but I was different. I didn't load up my charts with 20 indicators. I didn't spend hours looking for the perfect strategy. Instead, I did something that felt almost too simple. I created 3 rules. Rule 1, I will only trade between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. This eliminated my boredom trading. I had a defined window. Outside that window, I didn't even open my platform. This single rule probably saved me more money than any technical analysis concept I'd ever learned. Rule 2, after 2 consecutive winning trades, my position size stays the same for the next 3 trades. This protected me from my overconfidence pattern. Even when I felt invincible, my rule forced me to stay grounded. My ego hated this rule, but my account loved it. Rule 3, after being stopped out on a trade that subsequently moves in my direction, I must wait at least 2 hours before placing another trade. This cooling off period gave my emotional brain time to settle. It prevented revenge trading. It forced me to process the loss before moving forward. Now here's what's interesting. These rules weren't about becoming a better technical analyst. They were about protecting myself from my own psychological weaknesses. And that's when something profound happened. My trading started to feel boring. Not in a bad way, in a sustainable way. I wasn't getting the same dopamine spikes from big wins. I wasn't experiencing the same crushing lows from losses. My equity curve started to smooth out. Small wins, small losses. Nothing dramatic. Nothing exciting. But it was consistent. I remember the first month where I ended positive after following this approach. The gain was only 3.8%. Nothing Instagram worthy. But I hadn't broken a single rule. I'd taken my losses according to plan. I'd let my winners run. I'd stopped when my window closed, even when I wanted to keep trading. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like I was actually trading. Not gambling, not hoping, not fighting. Just executing a process and trusting it to work over time. The real signs of evolution. As I continued with this approach, I started noticing subtle changes in how I experienced trading. The first sign was physical. I used to get this tightness in my chest when I opened a trade. My heart would race, my palms would sweat, but gradually that physiological response began to fade. I'd enter a position and my body would stay calm. Not because I didn't care, but because I'd done this so many times with proper risk management that my nervous system had learned this isn't dangerous. Think about that. Your body can literally be trained to respond differently to risk, not through force of will, but through consistent, repeated exposure with positive outcomes. The second sign was how I handled drawdowns. About 6 months into my new approach, I hit a losing streak, 7 consecutive losses. In my old life, this would have destroyed me. I would have questioned everything, changed strategies, maybe blown up my account trying to make it back. But instead, I did something different. I pulled up my trading journal and reviewed each trade objectively. Trade 1, valid setup. Market moved against me. Stop loss appropriate, no mistakes. Trade 2, valid setup. Got stopped by volatile spike, no mistakes. Trade 3, valid setup. Market conditions changed, exited appropriately, no mistakes. All 7 trades were executions of my plan. The outcomes were negative, but the process was sound. I realized this wasn't a drawdown caused by poor trading. This was statistical variance. This was the cost of doing business. So I didn't change anything. I kept trading the same way. And over the next 10 trades, I had 7 winners. My equity recovered and then some. That experience taught me something crucial. Consistency isn't about never losing. It's about maintaining your process, regardless of short-term results. The third sign of evolution was more subtle. I stopped needing external validation. I used to lurk in trading Discord servers, constantly comparing my results to others. I'd feel inferior when someone posted a huge win. I'd feel superior when someone posted a loss. My self-worth was tied to how I stacked up against other traders. But as I became more consistent, that comparison trap lost its power. I stopped caring what other traders were doing because I knew my system worked for me. Their wins didn't diminish my process. Their losses didn't validate it. I was on my own path. I even stopped posting my trades on social media. Not because I was secretive, but because I no longer needed the likes, the comments, the validation. My trading became private, personal, almost meditative. The deeper lessons. Now, several years into consistent profitability, I can see patterns in trader development that I wish someone had explained to me earlier. Lesson 1. Your strategy matters far less than you think. I've seen traders succeed with simple moving average crossovers. I've seen traders fail with complex algorithmic systems. The difference isn't the strategy, it's the person executing it. If you put a disciplined trader and an undisciplined trader in front of the same exact setup, they'll get completely different results. The disciplined trader will follow their risk rules, take their losses appropriately, and let their winners run. The undisciplined trader will move their stop loss, exit early out of fear, or increase their position size emotionally. Same setup, different psychology, different outcomes. This is why jumping from strategy to strategy never works. You're not fixing the real problem. You're just putting a new paint job on a broken engine. Lesson 2. Losses are not failures. This might be the hardest lesson to internalize. We're conditioned from childhood to view loss as failure. Bad grades, lost games, rejection. Our brain files all of this under things to avoid. But in trading, losses are a necessary part of the process. If you never lose, you're either not trading or you're about to blow up spectacularly. I had to reframe how I thought about losses entirely. A loss isn't a failure. A loss is the cost of having an edge. It's tuition. It's data. It's feedback. The only real failure is violating your plan. If you follow your rules and lose money, that's not failure. That's just probability playing out. But if you break your rules and make money, that's actually a failure because you've reinforced bad behavior. This distinction completely changed my trading psychology. Lesson 3. Boredom is your friend. Most traders quit right when they're about to succeed because trading becomes boring. The thrill fades. The dopamine hits stop coming. They feel like they're just going through motions. But that's exactly the point. Professional trading should feel boring. It should feel routine. It should feel like showing up to do a job, not like gambling at a casino. When trading stops being exciting, that's when you know your process is working. You're not getting emotional highs and lows. You're just executing. And execution, when done consistently, compounds into something remarkable. I sometimes go entire days without opening a trade. Not because I'm lazy or uncommitted, but because my setups didn't appear. And I'm completely fine with that. I'm not bored by the lack of action. I'm proud of my patience. Lesson 4: the market is a mirror. This is perhaps the most profound realization I've had. The market doesn't make you lose. You lose because of how you interact with the market. The market doesn't make you impulsive. Your lack of emotional control makes you impulsive. Say that every problem you have in trading is a reflection of something inside you: impatience, fear, greed, need for validation, difficulty accepting uncertainty. The market just reveals these things. It holds up a mirror and shows you exactly who you are when money and ego are on the line. This is why I say that trading is the most expensive form of therapy you can get. But if you pay attention, if you really study yourself, it's also the most valuable. The advanced skills. Once you've mastered the basics of emotional control and consistent execution, there's another level. This is where trading becomes less about survival and more about optimization. Skill 1: reading your own state. I've learned to recognize my mental and emotional state before I even look at charts. Some days I wake up and I can feel that I'm off. Maybe I slept poorly. Maybe I'm distracted by personal issues. Maybe I'm just not mentally sharp. On those days, I don't trade, or I trade with reduced size, or I limit myself to only my highest probability setups. This isn't weakness, this is professionalism. A surgeon who's exhausted doesn't perform complex operations. A pilot who's impaired doesn't fly. Why would a trader operate at full capacity when they're not mentally sharp? Learning to honestly assess your own state and adjust accordingly is an advanced skill that protects your capital and your psychology. Skill 2: managing winning streaks. Losing streaks are hard, but winning streaks can be just as dangerous. When you're winning, you start to feel invincible. Your confidence swells. You begin to think you've figured it out. This is when most traders blow up. I've learned to be most cautious when I'm winning. I actively fight against overconfidence. I remind myself that I'm not smarter than the market. I'm just executing a process that has a positive expectancy over time. After strong winning periods, I sometimes reduce my position size slightly or take a day off. This prevents me from getting carried away by success. Skill 3: scenario planning. Before I enter any trade now, I mentally rehearse multiple scenarios. Not just, what if it goes my way, but what if it gaps against me overnight? What if volatility suddenly spikes? What if the trade sits flat for days? What if I'm stopped out and it immediately reverses? By mentally preparing for these scenarios, I'm never surprised. I've already processed these possibilities emotionally. When they happen, I execute my plan calmly, because I've already been there in my mind. This is what separates reactive traders from proactive traders. Reactive traders respond to the market with emotion. Proactive traders have already decided how they'll respond to any scenario. Skill 4: the post-trade routine. Many traders obsess over their entry. They spend hours analyzing the perfect entry point, but they give almost no thought to what happens after the entry. I've developed a post-trade routine that's just as important as my analysis. After entering a trade, I set my stop loss and take profit immediately. Write a brief note about my thesis and what would invalidate it. Close my platform. Set alerts for key levels, go do something else. This routine removes me from the emotional intensity of watching every tick. It forces me to trust my analysis and let the trade play out. The best trades I've ever had were ones where I entered, walked away, and came back hours later to see the profit. The worst trades were usually ones where I sat and watched every movement, second-guessing myself. The transformation beyond trading. Here's something unexpected. As I became a better trader, I became a better person. The skills I developed for trading started bleeding into every other area of my life. I became more patient with people. I stopped trying to control situations I couldn't control. I got better at making decisions under uncertainty. I learned to accept outcomes without attaching my ego to them. My relationships improved. My girlfriend actually came back, and we eventually got married. Not because I was making more money, but because I was no longer obsessed. I'd found balance. I could be present. My health improved. I started sleeping better because I wasn't up at night worrying about trades. I started exercising regularly because I understood the importance of managing my state. Trading had taught me that performance requires taking care of the whole system, not just obsessing over one part. I became financially responsible in ways that went beyond trading. I understood risk. I understood position sizing. I understood not putting all my eggs in one basket. These principles transformed how I thought about money in general. But perhaps most importantly, I developed a quiet confidence that I'd never had before. Not the loud, fake confidence of someone trying to convince themselves and others, not the fragile confidence that crumbles after a setback, but a deep, unshakable confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes. Because here's what trading really teaches you: you can't control outcomes, but you can control your response. And if you can consistently control your response, outcomes start to take care of themselves. This is true in trading. It's true in business. It's true in relationships. It's true in life. The message for new traders: if you're early in your trading journey and struggling, I want you to hear this. You're not broken. You're not stupid. You're not just not cut out for this. You're simply human. And humans are wired in ways that make trading incredibly difficult. The fear, the greed, the impatience, the need for certainty. These are all normal human responses. They kept our ancestors alive. But they wreck trading accounts. The path forward isn't about eliminating these responses. It's about recognizing them, understanding them, and building systems that protect you when they arise. Start with this. For the next month, don't worry about making money. Instead, focus on one thing: following your rules perfectly. Define your rules. Write them down. Make them simple. Then execute them with precision, regardless of outcome. If you follow your rules and lose money, consider it a successful month. If you break your rules and make money, consider it a failed month. This will feel wrong at first. Your brain will rebel. But this is how you reprogram yourself from outcome-focused to process-focused. And process-focused traders are the ones who survive long enough to succeed. Also, please, stop comparing yourself to others. Stop looking at social media posts of huge wins. Stop feeling inadequate because someone else is crushing it. You don't know their full story. You don't know how many accounts they've blown. You don't know whether they're lying. And most importantly, their journey is completely irrelevant to yours. The only comparison that matters is you versus your past self. Are you more disciplined than you were last month? Are you making fewer emotional decisions? Are you learning from your mistakes? If yes, you're moving in the right direction. The profits will come. They always do for those who stay in the game long enough. The emotional payoff. I want to take you back to where we started. Me at 2:47 a.m., broken, staring at my third blown account. If you had told that version of me that 5 years later I'd be consistently profitable, teaching others, and actually enjoying the process of trading, I wouldn't have believed you. Not because I doubted the possibility of success, but because I couldn't imagine feeling at peace with the uncertainty. I couldn't imagine not being controlled by fear and greed. I couldn't imagine a version of myself that was disciplined, patient, and emotionally stable. But that transformation happened. Not overnight, not through some magical breakthrough, but through small daily commitments to understanding myself and managing my psychology. And here's what I want you to understand. If it happened for me, it can happen for you. I wasn't special. I didn't have some innate gift for trading. I actually had terrible psychological habits. I was impulsive, emotional, and undisciplined. I was probably more broken than most people who start trading. But I made a choice. I chose to face myself honestly. I chose to stop blaming the market and start examining my own behavior. I chose to value process over outcomes. I chose to be patient with my own development. And those choices compounded over time into something beautiful: freedom. Not just financial freedom, though that came too, but psychological freedom. The freedom of knowing I can handle uncertainty. The freedom of trusting my own process. The freedom of not being controlled by fear or greed. The freedom of being at peace regardless of what the market does. That's what's waiting for you on the other side of this journey. Not just profits, but a fundamental transformation in how you relate to risk, uncertainty, and yourself. The path isn't easy. You'll face losses, doubts, and moments where you want to quit. But if you commit to this process, if you focus on your psychology as much as your strategy, if you value discipline over quick wins, you'll look back one day and realize you're not the same person who started this journey. You'll be calmer, wiser, and more capable. You'll have developed skills that extend far beyond the charts. And that's when you'll understand what I've come to know. Trading isn't really about money. It's about who you become in pursuit of consistency. It's about mastering the one thing you actually can control, yourself. That's the real prize. The profits are just a pleasant side effect. So wherever you are in your journey right now, whether you're just starting or you're 3 years in and struggling like I was, I want you to know you can do this. Not by being perfect, but by being committed. Not by never failing, but by learning from every failure. Not by controlling the market, but by controlling yourself. The market will always be there. The question is, will you be ready when your moment comes? Start today. Study yourself. Build your rules. Trust your process. And give yourself the same patience you need to give the market. Because the trader you're meant to become is already inside you. You just need to clear away everything that's blocking that person from emerging. That's the work, that's the journey. And it's worth every moment.